Welcome to Ambleside Flourish, brought to you by Ambleside Schools International, with Dr. Bill St. Cyr, Executive Director of Ambleside Schools International, hosted by Ambleside Schools of Colorado.
Well, it's always a delight to be with a group of parents who, number one, care passionately about their children. And I assume that's why you're here, because you care deeply and you have good dreams for your children. And second, I assume you're here because you think it's important to think. And that if you're going to be wise in bringing up your children, you're going to have to be reflective. So I hope that tonight I can fan the first of those a little bit and encourage you along the road, and second, give you some things to think about. You know, perhaps one of the most important questions a parent can ask him or herself is, what kind of a man, what kind of a woman do I want my child to be? There will come a day when your sons and daughters will be 30. And it'll be a whole lot faster than you expect. And at that point, they will have a very definite character. Your daughter will have a way of being in the world. With her spouse if she's married, with her friends, with God, with creation, with nature, with work. Your daughter will have a very specific way of being in the world. And that way will be either life-giving, rich, deeply satisfying, or less so. In like manner, your son, when he's 30, will have a very definite way of being in the world. With his wife, with his children, with his co-workers, with his friends, with God, with creation, with ideas, with work. He will have a very specific way of being in the world. And here's the thing. It's not going to happen just by being nice. Perhaps one of the greatest mistakes that parents make today is they think if they're simply nice to their children, it'll be enough. Let me tell you, parents that are just nice are not the most formative influence in their children's lives. Some of you have been reading The Collapse of Parenting, and for those of you who have not yet seen it, I would strongly recommend it. I believe if you want a copy of the book and haven't got it, Andrew will facilitate that process. Is that true? The Collapse of Parenting by Dr. Leonard Sachs, who's a physician and a PhD. And in his book, he'll tell you that the chief problems with parents today, number one, parents treat children like grown-ups. What would you like for dinner? Where do you want to go on vacation? What do you want to wear? In other words, parents are just too nice. Now, please hear me. I am not an advocate of being mean. Although if you're doing your job, let me assure you, the time will come when your child says you are mean. That's a mark of doing your job. I think one of the saddest stories I ever heard from a first grade Ambleside teacher, a particular young girl was she was not bringing healthy food to school. She was eating a lot of junk. She was, and it was clearly having an adverse effect. You could see her blood sugar levels spike and fall. And so the teacher met with the parent, and this was the conversation. Do you know your daughter needs a healthier snack and a healthier food, something that's lower glycemic, because she's getting these ups and downs, and the day's a roller coaster ride for her. I think we kind of leveled out the simple carbohydrates. It would help. This is what the mother said. But she doesn't like that. Well, I understand, but you are the mother, and you can pack her lunch. But she won't be happy with me. Do you know, there are times when, as a mother, you have to tell your daughter she must do something she does not want to do. And there are other times you must tell your daughter that she may not do something that she wants to do. To which the mother responded, but she wouldn't like that, and she might cry. To which the teacher responded, and this is the teacher herself was a mother of three, by then adult children. And she said, she leaned over, looked into the mother's eyes, and said, you know, there are times you will make your children cry. To which the mother said, I don't think I can do that. What a travesty. What that means is the daughter's tears hold the mother hostage. The collapse of parenting. See, parents don't suggest, they command. Parents who put the child's wishes before that which is good and true and right do not breed affection, they breed contempt. Children actually have contempt for parents who don't take the role of parenting seriously. So the first thought, as we move into the topic tonight, parenting in the digital age, is who's in charge, who will make the tough calls, and are you prepared to make your children cry? For their good. Well, when it comes to parenting in the digital age, and there are two kinds of challenges, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about each of those challenges. The first is what I would call hard challenges, and that probably gets the most attention. You've probably heard some things on this. And the other soft challenges. Hard challenges speak to the destructive nature of certain abuses of technologies. Soft challenges speak to the way technologies fundamentally alter our way of being in the world. Get the difference between those two? There are a lot of technologies that are fundamentally, that are, in some sense, are neutral. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you got to know I'm not anti-technology. I travel with an iPhone, a Mac Air, and a Microsoft Surface. At home, I have a closet that's my prayer room, writing room. You know, it literally was a closet, and on it I've got, corkboard and things I'm praying for and Bible verses I'm studying, and, an old wooden cross that's particularly meaningful to me, and a picture of Mother Teresa, and I've got a 24-inch by 12-inch screen and a Mac Mini, which is where I hide away to do writing. Downstairs in my main office with a bay window overlooking our yard, I have a second computer, a Mac Pro with another 24 by 12 inch screen, and that's where I answer all my emails and do all my Ambleside Schools International management type work. So I'm not opposed to technology. But what I want to do is look at the hard abuses, the hard challenges, as well as the soft challenges in terms of how it shapes generally our way of doing life together. The hard challenges. Perhaps the greatest challenge is the fundamentally addictive nature of screens. Here's an excerpt from Digital Heroin by Dr. Nicholas Kardassis, and you can find that article on the Ambleside Schools International website in the library, but here's just an excerpt from it. At first, Susan was quite pleased with her son's interest in Minecraft. John seemed engaged in creative play as he explored the cube world of the game. She did notice that the game wasn't quite like the Legos that she remembered. But after all, she didn't have to then kill animals and find rare minerals to survive and get to the next level. But John did seem to really like playing, and the school even had a Minecraft club. So how bad could it be? Still, Susan couldn't deny she was seeing changes in John. He started getting more and more focused on his game and losing interest in baseball and reading while refusing to do his chores. Some mornings he would wake up and tell her that he could see the cube shapes in his dreams. Although that concerned her, she thought her son might just be exhibiting an active imagination. As his behavior continued to deteriorate, she tried to take the game away, but John threw temper tantrums. His outbursts were so severe that she gave in, still rationalizing to herself over and over again that, quote, it's educational. Then one night she realized that something was seriously wrong. I walked into his room to check on him. He was supposed to be sleeping, and I was just so frightened. She found him sitting up in his bed, staring wide-eyed, his bloodshot eyes looking into the distance as his glowing iPad lay next to him. He seemed to be in a trance. Beside herself with panic, Susan had to shake the boy repeatedly to snap him out of it. Distraught, she could not understand how her once healthy, happy little boy had been so addicted to the game that he wound up in a catatonic stupor. There's a reason that the most tech-conscious parents are tech designers and engineers. Steve Jobs was a notoriously low-tech parent. Silicon Valley tech executives and engineers enroll their kids in no-tech Waldorf schools. Google founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page went to no-tech Montessori schools, as did Amazon creator Jeff Bezos and Wikipedia founder Jimmy Wales. Many parents intuitively understand that the ubiquitous glowing screens are having a negative effect on kids. We see the aggressive temper tantrums when the devices are taken away and the wandering attention spans when children are not perpetually stimulated by their hyper-arousing devices. Worse, we see children become bored, apathetic, uninteresting, and uninterested when they're not plugged in. But it's even worse than we think. We now know that those iPads, smartphones, and Xboxes are a form of digital drug. Recent brain imaging research is showing that they affect the brain's frontal cortex, which controls executive functioning, including impulse control, in exactly the same way cocaine does. Technology is so hyper-arousing that it raises dopamine levels, the feel-good neurotransmitter most involved in the addiction dynamic as well as in sex. This addictive element is why Dr. Peter Wybrow, director of neuroscience at UCLA, calls screens electronic cocaine. And Chinese researchers call them digital heroin. In fact, Dr. Andrew Doan, the head of addiction research in the Pentagon and the US Navy, who has been researching video game addiction, calls video games and screen technologies digital pharmakeia, which is Greek for drug. Pretty grim, huh? It's not neutral. It's not just a screen, the way it interacts with the brain. In fact, just had this conversation just this week with an Ambleside principal. Not the one here, but another one. This one has 3 sons, and they're low screen, minimal screen, but they were visiting grandparents' house. And so even though they put a 2-hour limit on screen time for the 3 boys combined, and what he watched by the second day was a complete deterioration of their normal ways of relating to one another. They became irritable, anxious, and then when he took the screen away, they erupted in anger, which was atypical for these boys. Typical withdrawal symptoms. I have on my computer at home a study done at a hospital. I can't remember which one it was in the Northwest. It's either in Seattle or Portland, Children's Hospital. Here was the study. Something like 5,000 3-year-olds. One question: how many hours on a screen every day? Second question: when they're 6 years old, do they meet the diagnostic criteria of ADHD? For every hour of screen time on an average day, 10% increased probability of meeting the diagnostic criteria of ADHD. So if you're a 3-year-old on screens for 10 hours a day, and that is not atypical today. Just look around next time you're in an airport or at a restaurant. Not atypical for a 3-year-old to be on a screen 10 hours. You're doubling the probability that they'll meet the diagnostic criteria of ADHD when they're in first grade. Philip Zimbardo, in his book, The Demise of Guys, spends a lot of time talking about how the extent to which screens are dominating the lives of our young men, our junior high students particularly, and high school students, and the level of porn addiction. I saw a statistic once. Wish I had kept the study. But take this with a grain of salt, but I think it approaches the truth. If you're a 13-year-old boy and you have a screen in your room that's connected to Wi-Fi, 100% are on pornography. Because, think about it. 13-year-old boy, let's put a stack of Playboys under his bed. Now, precisely what are the odds that 13-year-old boy is not going to be reaching down under his bed? Right? We're kidding ourselves if we don't think he's going to. And put an iPad connected to the Wi-Fi in his room. Just like putting a stack of Playboys under the bed, and worse. Girls don't tend to have that quite problem. Junior high, theirs is a little different. They tend to become obsessed with their image on the screen. Hours and hours photoshopping their pictures, scanning through hundreds of pictures to find just the right one and try to post it in just the right way. Now that is a recipe for fanning narcissism. grossly unhealthy self-preoccupation and concern with how others are thinking of me.
Ambleside Schools International fosters an educational renewal based upon the pedagogical insights of British educator Charlotte Mason. Serving an international community of parents, teachers, and schools, Ambleside makes a living education accessible to all. A living education empowers students to live lives rich in relationship to God, self, others, ideas, work, and creation. For additional information regarding Ambleside Schools International and training opportunities for principals, teachers, and parents, please visit our website at amblesidschools.com.